In a previous video, we looked at how to extract words of text from a line of text, a single string, and put them into separate cells. And we did that with the left formula, the find formula, we used the mid formula, the trim formula, and we used the right formula and the len formula in order to do that. Now, this was a very simplified example. We only had 3 words. One of them was separated by a space. One of them was separated by a comma. That is a very simplified example compared to other things we might encounter. And we're going to look at sort of a all-purpose solution, which will allow you to extract just about any words that you want to from a string of text. And we're going to do that with the formula called substitute. So you can see here a more complicated example, the same kind of text we saw earlier, but with a few extra things added on at the end, separated by commas. And you can think, if you think ahead and you consider the methodologies we've used, this is kind of a challenge because the formulas we looked at, the find formula, does not let you find a certain instance of the item we're looking for. So if we're looking to find commas, let's say, just to cut up this, to find out this non-USA part, this country of origin piece, which is the 4th word here, we can't really do that with the find formula alone because we can't tell the find formula to find me the 2nd comma and the 3rd comma. That actually doesn't work. We need to be a little smarter about that. We need to use another formula called substitute, which actually does have that functionality, but doesn't do what the find formula does, so it needs to be used in coordination with the find formula. Now this formula that we're going to write gets long pretty quick, but before we actually write the real formula, I just want to show you the substitute formula, what it does, and why it's interesting. So I'm going to say substitute. I'm going to write it up here. Substitute. And what I first indicate is the text we're looking at. And then it asks for old text. That's the text we're replacing. In this case, it's going to be commas. So I'm going to put a comma here in quotes. And then the next piece is what the new text is going to be. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you kind of a better approach than what I'm doing now. But for now, I'm just going to use a pound sign because it's easy to see. Pound sign. And then I'm going to say at the end, the next piece is instance number. Now, if I just put a 1 here, you can see what it has done is replace the first comma with a pound sign. Quite logically, if I put a 2 here, it has replaced the 2nd comma with a pound sign. And that is how that formula works. I really wish find had that function, but it does not by itself. The substitute formula, however, does let you indicate and tag individual instances of a piece of text within a string. So we're going to use that along with the find formula to find an anchor that we place there, in this case a pound sign. So we're going to place a pound sign where we want to find something and then find it to count the distance from the beginning to where that item is, which is the 2nd comma in this case. So let's write the formula. We're going to use mid, and once again we're going to look for this 4th word here, non-USA, after the 2nd comma and before the 3rd comma. So we're going to say, I'm going to write it up here, we're going to say mid. The first piece is the cell we want. I'm going to put a comma here. Now what I'm going to start doing with this formula, because it's kind of a longer formula, kind of hard to see and understand instantly, we're going to break it up into multiple lines. This actually doesn't affect the functionality of the formula, it just helps you organize it. You can make this a little bit larger if you want so that is easier to do. So we're going to say Alt, Enter, makes a new line. And now we're going to say the next piece of this formula is asking for the start number, where we're starting. That's going to be at the 2nd comma. So we have to find the 2nd comma. We need to find, and in this case we're going to find a pound sign, bear with me, within a version of this string which substitutes the 2nd comma with a pound sign. So that's going to be substitute, this string, this text. The old text is going to be a comma. The new text is going to be a pound sign. And then the instance number is going to be 2. And parenthesis, to get to the end of the find formula. And now I'm going to go to a new line. The next piece would be the number of characters. We have to do some work here, but for now I'm just going to put 5 and parenthesis just to show you what it's doing. And you can see what it has done. It has extracted 5 characters. You can only kind of see 3, but including the comma, the space, and another space, or rather just the comma and the space, that is in fact 5 characters. And that actually is starting to take shape. It has definitely started in the right place, but we don't really like this comma here, and we can get rid of it rather easily over here. If you think about this being the starting place, we can add 1 to get rid of the comma. And sure enough, that gets rid of the comma. Now there is a space there. We could add 2, but the kind of the cleaner way to do it is just to use the trim formula, which will encase around the whole formula, and that gets rid of the trailing space. This is really starting to take shape, but the next part is a little more challenging. We've indicated where to start, but now, and we just put a 5 here though, we need to, instead of 5, we need to indicate the distance from here to here, from the second comma to the third comma. Now the way we did it last time was we looked at the distance from the beginning to the third comma, or the beginning to the item we're looking for, and the beginning to the item before it, and sort of subtract them out. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to use find and substitute and all this stuff up here. So rather than retyping all this, I can just copy it. And instead of 5, I'm going to replace it with that. And then what I need to do is, instead of using 2 here, I'm going to say 3, because we're finding the distance from the beginning to the third comma. But then what I want to do is subtract the distance from here, from the beginning to the second comma. So what I need to do is I need to find the right spot to end here, which is going to be, what I'm going to do to find that is I'm going to sort of use the arrow keys, and as I use the arrow keys, it will light up the different parentheses. So this lights up the green parenthesis, then the purple parenthesis. That's the right spot. So what I'm going to do is say subtract, and then I'm going to paste this again, this formula, and this formula actually is correct because we're finding the second comma here. And then I'm going to hit enter, and you can see this is really starting to take shape. We found the distance from the beginning to the third comma. Now and then we subtract the distance from the beginning to the second comma, and that is this distance basically. However, we still have this trailing comma. We can get rid of that by going all the way to the end here. Once again, be careful where you ended. We don't want it to be before, after the mid formula entirely. We want it to be inside the mid formula, and that is here. You can see it's just number of characters. What we want to do is we want to subtract a 1 in order to get rid of that ending comma, and we've done it. We have a formula that pulls out the fourth word in this area, in this string. And you can see it is modulated the distance, the duration, the length of it correctly to be for non-USA. Now we did this well with a pound sign, and that's just fine. However, there's one challenge with that approach, because what if we had text that might have a pound sign in it? This formula will start to break down rather quickly if that happens. Now, we could find a character that's obscure, we could do a lot of different things, but there's actually kind of a hack, rather, that does it rather well. And the way to understand that hack is to first understand the formula called character or char. Now over here I've put what are called ASCII codes, just for clarity, though they're hardly clear. And what they are is it's associated with every character, with every symbol, with every letter, is actually a number. So I can see if I just scroll down to the symbols we're more familiar with, so here's the @ symbol is 64, right? If I use this formula, char, and then put in the number 64, it will return an @ symbol. That's really interesting. What if I put in 62? I will get a greater than symbol. So you can force Excel to see any particular character you want it to see by using these character codes. So why would we bother with that? There are certain character codes that refer to things that just don't show up in natural text. Things like start of header in particular, or one of these odd ones that would only show up, not really in Excel, they're not really for Excel, they wouldn't really show up in any natural text that we would run into. So actually what we can use is we can use char 1 or char 0, one of these things, to be a character that would be the anchor that we're looking for instead of a hashtag. And that way it's almost impossible for the formula to break down when it encounters odd text. So what we would do is we'd go up here and replace all of our pound signs with char 1. I'm just going to hit Control C, go over here, replacing this pound sign with char 1, replacing this pound sign with char 1, all of them. I could probably use a find and replace, but I'll just do it manually just to show you what it's doing. And there you go. Now this makes it very difficult to troubleshoot the formula and see the results as you type it, but this is great in terms of when you make a final formula in order for it to be very difficult to break when it encounters any kind of peculiarities in the natural text which you are going to operate with. Okay, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for watching. Please like if this was helpful and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And I hope you have an excellent day.